Hey everyone, it's Derrick Broze. I'm here at the Libertarian National Convention with an old friend of mine, Michael Heise. How's it going, brother?
Good to see you, man. I'm good.
It's good to see you, man. And well, let's just put this out of the way, just for all intents and purposes. Mike and I are old friends. We've known each other for over a decade now. I mean,
Yep.
Ron Paul days, in the Fed movement. Him based in Philly, me down in Houston. But if you know my work, Mike's been doing the similar work, on the streets and on the ground level for years. And you also, what we're going to speak about today, are the founder, the originator of the Mises Caucus. Started with a Facebook group, right?
Correct.
Tell everybody a little bit about that story in case they're not familiar, just how it started and the takeover of the party, that sort of thing.
So it started out a lot more modest than what it's become. At the beginning, the trajectory of the Libertarian Party was looking like it was going to nominate Bill Weld for president. And we had just been embarrassed, principally messaging-wise, by Gary Johnson. The party had been overtaken by politics more than philosophy. And we, as being part of that Ron Paul revolution, felt embarrassed by that and basically just wanted to have a political home for that Ron Paul revolution. And so that was the original idea. And our original goal was, let's just have it not be Bill Weld. And that was the original goal. And so the support just flooded in without really any effort, because the chair of the party took it upon himself to start saying that the Mises Institute is the preferred think tank of Nazis and Ron Paul is a racist and all of this stuff. So that pissed a lot of people off, who then found my group, and it just kind of started moving forward faster and faster. The support started growing, and then before long, I'd gotten the support of Tom Woods and Dave Smith, and that really opened up the recruitment funnel to the point where we took over the Libertarian Party.
You ended up having chapters all over the country.
Yeah, we have chapters in every state, and 300 organizers who then have thousands of volunteers under them.
So this was in 2020 or what year was the takeover?
Yep. 2022.
2022.
Yep.
So Biden years, post-Trump, but let's go back a little further even that, because there have been people who have been, like you said, embarrassed of the party. 2016 was Gary Johnson. For a long time, the Libertarian Party really hasn't represented the origin of this movement. And for people like you and I, it was Ron Paul. But of course, Ron Paul was influenced by Rothbard, and Murray Rothbard, for those who are unaware, was really instrumental in the movement. The libertarian movement, before there was a party in the 60s
Correct.
and the 70s, the student movement is what eventually led to the party. And so it was very radical from the beginning. And even from the beginning, you had the radical Libertarian Caucus. People were trying to hold down what I think you're trying to hold down now.
Yep.
But of course, over the years, there's been people who say, well, if we want mainstream appeal, we need to water down the message. Or even if they don't outright say that, that's what they call for. And just trying to kind of make it more palatable to a mainstream audience, whereas others have tried to be more about no, we need to stick to the philosophy and be proud and be radical. And that's kind of, is it fair to say that's more what you're representing?
Oh, absolutely. And I would say that we have an understanding of the party that's more in line with the founding vision of the Libertarian Party. The founding vision of the Libertarian Party wasn't for it to be another political party. It was very clearly for it to be essentially a philosophical movement disguised as a political party, and to use politics as a way to get that message out and change culture. Because in any organic sense, there's not really going to be any political shifts in a libertarian direction until we get people thinking and caring more about liberty. And so that's a culture shift. The political change would come after that anyway. So that's got to be the primary goal.
So for you, the takeover of the party was let's at least use this vehicle, which had radical roots, try to bring it back to those roots and represent this message that inspired millions of people through Ron Paul and others. So let's get now into some of the controversial stuff, because obviously, along with this, what started as a Facebook group, not only, which again, props in terms of just getting mainstream attention, because not all of our Facebook groups become stories on Washington Post and New York Times and things like that. And not necessarily to say the coverage has all been good, but nonetheless, the Mises Caucus and the party have gained a lot of attention the last couple of years. And in terms of criticism, we'll talk about the party first, but let's start with the mainstream. So the mainstream kind of line of thinking has been that this is a far-right takeover. Of course, this audience is going to be familiar with far-right as a label gets thrown around and attached to anybody who doesn't align with mainstream views. But, a far-right takeover of the party, trying to pull it closer to Trump people, and even in some cases, there's outright conspiracies saying that, you working with Patrick Byrne and others have, purposely tried to do that. Is there any truth to that, and how do you respond to those claims?
No, I wouldn't say that we're at all far right. What they try to make that take that from is the fact that so in our platform, we don't have any comment on borders. And so we're not pro open borders, but we're not pro like private borders either. We're basically, the idea is that we're trying to represent the tradition of libertarian, like the Austro-libertarian tradition. And if you go to the Mises Institute, our platform, there is debate about these issues. There's no monolithic, this is the libertarian answer on things like abortion or things like, the border. And so those things then tend to break down along, I would say, two different lines. One, they are the two issues where the manifestation from first principles, if you are a minarchist or an anarchist, are very different. Like the border is very different if you're a minarchist or anarchist, because it's the difference between should the government own it or not. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I would argue that both of those sects have a seat at the table. So that's why we don't take a stance. We don't want that to be a wedge issue. But it's also a cultural issue. I mean, generally speaking, people on the left tend to be the ones who are more in favor of open borders, and people on the right are more in favor of like tradition and order, and therefore, more border restrictions.
And even within the Libertarian Party, you do have that push and pull of, like, I hate to use the terms, but for lack of better terminology, left and right, even within the party.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that says, oh, left and right are the same thing. I think it depends on how you're using those words. You know what I mean? Like, I think people tend to think of it as almost like different packages of policy prescriptions. But when you look at the fact that people who are of a left or right political persuasion tend to have very similar general personality type distributions, I think it's actually a little bit deeper than just my opinion on this issue and stuff like that. So,
and to the concern or the question or the accusation of Patrick Byrne, some connection to the Trump campaign, is there any? Can you either debunk or confirm that?
So I met Patrick Byrne once. No, I met him twice. I met him once in 2017 up in Aspen, Colorado for a cryptocurrency conference, the Nexus conference. Yeah, so I met him there, and so we're talking 2017. This is before Stop the Steal and all that stuff. Yeah. At that time, this would not have been controversial. You know what I mean? Like, he was known as a libertarian billionaire, founder of Overstock for years. Yeah. The party itself, the people who are lobbying the accusations, they hosted paid dinners with him. And so before we were ever a PAC, I met him at that conference and he gave us $5,000. It was like the first substantial donation that we ever got. I was like, wow.
As the Mises Caucus or
Oh yeah, as the Mises Caucus. Yeah, at that point. I mean, again, we were still just a Facebook group at that point. And then I met him. It's actually kind of funny in hindsight, in context, but I met him, I want to say in 2019 at a different conference. I met him in private with Larry Sharp to talk to him about potentially running for president as a libertarian. And we got that meeting. We almost lost the meeting. And I remember in the meeting thinking, he seems like he's not here. And then not long after that is when he did the interview with Chris Cuomo, where he basically said, I'm leaving Overstock, I'm on the lam. And people know him with the Stop the Steal stuff, but he also has a series of articles on his deepcapture.com website. This dude is either crazy or has had a really crazy life.
I've seen some of the stuff he said have happened to him.
And so...
But there's no connection from, because I'm sure you've seen it, it tries to weave a connection from, you met him, look, Mike Heise, here's pictures of him.
Yeah.
And this guy's obviously connected to the Trump, universe, etc. So, but is there anything, whether through Patrick Byrne or anyone else, just debunk that now? If so, is there some direct connection to the?
Oh no. I've like I said, I've met with him at a couple conferences. I had some emails he gave me, and I haven't had any connection with him since
Trump
2019.
Campaign, none of the reps have ever reached out.
No.
You've seen said, hey, bring the party our way. Or
no, absolutely not.
And you're not the chair of the caucus anymore.
No, I'm not at this point.
You're obviously still involved. You're still here. You're still a member of the party. Okay, well, and then let's talk a little bit about the criticisms from maybe some of the folks within the party, because that's mainly, I think, outside. Some of that might carry over. But like tonight, for example, we're preparing for Donald Trump to speak at the event. Again, you're not at the head of the caucus at the moment. You're not the chair of the party, but you have some influence. You have some,
I've been compared to Karl Rove.
You have some clout here, right? Let's say that. Well, first off, what your individual personal opinion is? It that's a positive move, negative move that hurts?
I think it's great. And because people are acting as if Trump's just going to come, give a MAGA speech, and leave, and that's not the format. That's not the format.
What is the format?
The format is the members of the Libertarian Party are voting on our top issues that are then presented to him, and then he is supposed to speak to those issues, and then So he gives his take on those issues, and then the Libertarian candidate comes up and responds to him. Now, I think.
So is there going to be any way to? I mean, we all know Trump can be a rambler, and he can filibuster with the best. And is there going to be any kind of, I guess, mechanism for Angela or somebody to say, "Hey, Mr. Trump, can we get you back on track?"
Probably not, especially with Secret Service.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is what he agreed to, and I wasn't in those conversations. But my understanding is that there is a actual agreement.
Yeah. Okay.
So
there should be some opportunity to actually bring issues that libertarians care about, whether in the party or of the movement.
Yeah, it's going to be like last I saw it was like, and the Fed, Ross Albright, the
That'd
drug.
be amazing if Ross is mentioned for sure.
Right.
What are your thoughts on have you been engaging the temperature out here? Do you think he's going to get a welcome reception, or is there going to be kind of split among the party?
I don't think he should get a welcome reception. I mean, he's not a libertarian, and we're not
think
claiming
he's going to be booed out of the room.
It's very possible. Here's what I would like to see. I would like to see something in the middle. I would like to see something like sort of like what happened with Ramaswamy last night, where if he says something that we like, we cheer. If he says something we don't, we boo.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Like hold him accountable where needed.
Yeah.
Give him a chance to say his thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to those who feel like? So, for example, if we were to go search right now and Google CIA search Libertarian Convention and Trump together, they're pretty much all promoting it as a civil war among the party. Do you think that's accurate to say that there's a civil war among the party right now?
I mean, there's absolutely factions in the party, and we are of the faction that thinks this is a good move because we've never been on stage with the main candidates ever, and that's what we've always said we wanted. So we're definitely in that camp, and then there is definitely a camp that thinks it's the worst thing ever and all of this stuff. But I think the convention to this point has been playing out great. I mean, I think the debate last night with Clint Russell and Vivek was probably one of the best moments that we've ever had. It got to the point in that debate where, let's be honest, Vivek is here to be a surrogate for Trump. You know what I mean? Like, he's the one who will do more interaction than actual Trump. So Clint was hitting him so much and so hard from the libertarian position on Trump that Vivek finally had to be like, my name's Vivek. You know what I mean? Like, he had to separate himself and
take a step back.
So, I mean, it's a risk. It's absolutely a risk. But we don't win any elections. We don't, no major elections. The corporate media is going to treat us like shit no matter what we do. We don't have much influence. We don't have much money. It's like, throw a bomb, you know what I mean? Like, make a play, like, do something, take a risk.
The Hail Mary, maybe, huh?
I mean, sure, but I mean, I also think it's indicative of, I'm sure you're familiar with the adage, like, politics is downstream from culture. I think this is that in action. I think my opinion on what's happening here is that, especially in the past 5 years, the media paradigm has really broken and gave way to the podcast paradigm. And so, if you see anything about us on podcasts, it's good. If you see us on corporate media, it's bad. There's this crazy dichotomy. And I think the podcast paradigm has actually overtaken the corporate media paradigm. And I think that what that means is that the media class of today is more open to libertarian ideas and more open to libertarians than any media class that has ever existed. And I think this situation has really been going on for about 5 years, especially. And I think our ideas are taking root in the culture. And now you're starting to see the reaction from that.
So, last one, and we'll wrap up. I know you got stuff to do. I guess I'll speak for myself personally, and for some, I'm sure, at home, who probably agree with what you said, and others who might say, if I was to mention a libertarian, I ran for mayor of Houston, and I had the endorsement and support of the Texas Mises Caucus and the Harris County Libertarian Party, which I was grateful for. As I'm out speaking to just average Houstonians who aren't knee-deep in podcasts and all this like we are, in this particular world, they hear the word libertarian, and, for years it's been, you guys must love corporations. That's been the red herring thrown at libertarians, that it's just, we want to have corporations take over the world, right? So there's already that kind of trying to overcome that barrier. And now I guess the concern by some is that there's going to be the association with Trump. So now not only we're going to have to say, no, we don't love corporations, that's not our vision, it's actually about individual liberty and non-aggression principle, this equation of, well, libertarians are just Republican light or something like that. Could you just speak to those concerns and wrap up, and more to the point, what is the core message of libertarianism to you? So if somebody hears that, how would you counter that and say, no, that's not what we are, this is what we're about? Yeah,
absolutely. So what I would say is that is going to be a risk no matter what you do. Sure. You know what I mean? Because the mainstream conversation is dominated by the left and the right, and so they're going to associate it with their preferred or already existing thinking. You know what I mean? So that already exists. What that demands of us then is to continue to do this stuff where we are in the podcast paradigm, getting in front of as many people as possible, speaking the message as much as possible, and just engage in that First Amendment battle. Engage. Yeah. Well, not even just better messaging, but it's. I see it almost as a competition. This stuff, like, it's not like they're just out there giving their speech because that's what they think. They have agendas and they have narratives and they have all of this stuff. So we have to engage in that, knowing that is the case, and then like consciously combat it. You know what I mean? So I think that the more you see Dave Smith on Rogan and Tucker and all of this stuff, I think that helps tremendously. And then as far as like what is the vision of libertarianism, like what is it all about? I mean, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, man. I'm a Rothbardian and Ron Paul guy. I think it could be easily summed up as the not property rights, the non-aggression principle, and free association, basically.
Okay. All right. Well, best of luck with everything tonight, brother.